A former Disney Channel star has created an AI platform that allows people to communicate with their deceased loved ones. Callum Worthy released this promotional video for his app Two Way last week. The clip features a pregnant woman speaking to an AI recreation of her late mother through her phone, with the narrator going on to say, quote, "What if loved ones we've lost could be part of our future?" Critics say the app is straight out of a Black Mirror episode and are asking where we draw the line when it comes to artificial intelligence. So let's pull a thread on that one a little longer right now. Joining us now to unpack the ethics of AI is Kevin Matsui, the managing director of the Center for Advancing Responsible and Ethical Artificial Intelligence at the University of Guelph. Kevin, really appreciate your time this morning. This promo really shocked me. We know AI has plenty of capabilities, but the idea of speaking to, dead friends or relatives after just entering, kind of 2 minutes of sort of content of them, how does this strike you before we get into the ethics of it alone?
Well, I mean, it just sort of reflects the capabilities of artificial intelligence today. But, I think that there's, it's just a representation of the growing capabilities and how, certainly compelling videos and that can be manufactured using artificial intelligence.
Certainly. And so, Kevin, we AI and ethics, the conversation, really is sort of an evolving conversation as AI and the power of, artificial intelligence and these sort of, models, continue to move around. But a lot of people's concern here, Kevin, is just how dominant and how much of the AI space is really dominated by just a few players controlling this sort of tech barons, et cetera. Can you get ethics into AI when it's controlled by so few and so wealthy?
Well, I think that's the importance of sort of introducing the concepts of regulations and sort of guidelines and just really the general public advocating for their concerns in terms of everything from privacy and data protections and how their information is used to the improper use of AI, preventing people from using it for malicious type of applications and uses of that nature.
Yeah, I suppose the big question, Kevin, is then who's to say what is the appropriate use, right? I mean, I may disagree with the idea of trying to speak to a dead relative, based on a bit of data, but perhaps, and I'm not saying you do, but perhaps you do. The idea of who decides that, who regulates this, how do we get to that position where we can kind of figure out where these guardrails are?
Well, I think it's a combination of things. Obviously nobody's trying to stifle innovation and really limit people's own decision-making process. But I think that either through some constraints or declarations of, disclaimers of, what people are experiencing or what they're seeing, so they know it's AI generated, so they don't sort of, view it differently or view it as, or sort of necessarily authentic or factual. So that, I think that's important, regardless of the level of regulations that exist. Specifically with things like, AI companions or grief bots or all these type of devices or therapy-oriented applications. I think there's a lot of concerns about that. I mean, if you think of something like therapy is regulated, for example, other types of things are regulated. So, there, as a starting point, you have to at least have some discussion and consideration of that.
The other thing I hear discussed a lot, Kevin, when it comes to the AI space is the idea that, potentially in these large language models, that so much of the content here is, basically the internet uploaded, et cetera, that it's kind of theft of intellectual property here, and that these models are sort of taking advantage of it, not paying for the content, the research, and everything that's gone into that. How do you see that ultimately being resolved? The idea that, what gets put out, what gets written, what gets researched can just be taken by these models and then reworked without credit being given.
Right. And I think that, a lot of people have different perspectives on that, whether it's, if you take a fair use, fair dealing perspective on it, but also, definitely concerns about that. I think particularly with visual art as well, or creative art, compared to text. I've spoken with sort of award-winning authors, and I think they're somewhat less concerned about. I mean, if you look at the level of compensation, like the Anthropic lawsuit that was essentially settled in August for like at $1.5 billion, that people are sort of less concerned about maybe the content on the text side. I mean, people would like fair compensation for that, but I think just the impact on society about loss of some of the entry-level writing jobs actually maybe presents a bigger issue on the writing side. I think on the visual arts, for artists creating different types of media, that I think that's a bigger concern about scraping that type of information for generating images, and sort of unlearning that is definitely a concern.
It's fascinating to watch. Of course, AI was, of course, at the heart of that Hollywood writer strike a couple of years ago. Kevin Matsui, appreciate the time this morning. Kevin is the Managing Director for the Center for Advancing Responsible and Ethical Artificial Intelligence at the University of Guelph. Appreciate the time this morning, Kevin.
Great. Thank you. My pleasure.